Hi everyone, welcome to Leisrealtalk. Good evening, good afternoon, or good morning. Happy weekend. This program was meant for yesterday, but I ran out of time preparing for it, so we are doing a live stream on Friday night. I want to apologize for the beeping sound in the background. My smoke detector is not working. I tried to replace the battery, but it still doesn't work. So I apologize for the beeping in the background. Hope it doesn't affect our audio. Okay. Today is an eventful day for Tesla. Its stock began the day down 9%, and then it ended the day up 3%. And Tesla announced 30%. I shouldn't say 30%. It announced a significant price cut on its Model 3 and Model Y in China. I have a subscriber asking me this afternoon about Tesla China's website crashing periodically due to the huge influx of orders. And he asked about Tesla showrooms in China being mobbed. And some say it's car buyers, and others say there are people, there are protesters. And the subscriber asked me whether that's true. He said if it's all true or parts of it is true. And my answer is all of the above is, according to what I see, is true. When Tesla lowered the price of its Model Y by 30% on New Year's Day in 2021, it received 100,000 orders within 10 hours. And the traffic shut down Tesla China website. So I believe the same thing is happening today. And Chinese, I checked on the Chinese social media. Some people are upset because they didn't get the deal. And also have seen people posting on social media about how they're being encouraged to go to Tesla showroom to protest, like a list of things that they're asked to do. But it's not clear who is organizing that. But I'm not surprised because the price cut definitely makes some people unhappy, right? So Tesla has had a tough year, or had a tough year last year, because we're just beginning. Even though it had a record sale of 1.3 million cars in 2022, which is 40% over the year before, it was below Elon Musk's expectation of 50% growth. Tesla's stock had the worst year, ending 2022 with a 65% drop. And on Tuesday, the first business day of the year, Tesla's stock plunged more than 12%. And Western media attributed Tesla's stock dip to several reasons. There's several reasons that they attribute this to: higher interest rates, increased competition, sluggish sales in the Chinese market, and backslash against Elon Musk since his takeover of Twitter. I think today's huge price cut is to address the below expectation performance in the capital market. Um, by the way, today's price cut in China made Model 3 30% cheaper in China than in the US, and Model Y 43% cheaper in China than in the US market. So why does Tesla do that, right? Well, Chinese market is very important. More than 50% of its cars are made in the Shanghai Gigafactory, and Tesla sold over 40% of its cars in the Chinese market last year. I checked the numbers at 40%. My calculation is close to 50%. So it's between 40 and 50%. And there's another factor, that is its competition with the Chinese automaker BYD, and that's extremely important. A day ago, the same subscriber asked me why Tesla is losing market share to BYD. And he said Wall Street doesn't offer a good answer, or people in Wall Street don't offer a good answer as to why it is. And he asked me for my insight. So today we'll talk about Tesla, BYD, and the Chinese EV market, related to Tesla's stock. So 12 years ago in 2011, a Bloomberg journalist interviewed Elon Musk and asked him about BYD. And Musk laughed and asked back, have you seen their cars? He said he didn't see BYD as a competitor because they don't have a good product. Today, BYD is a worthy competitor. And also, BYD beat Tesla in 2022 to become the world's largest EV maker again. I think BYD held that spot for a number of years, and then Tesla took that spot for 3 years. And this year, it went back to BYD again. But when that happened, Chinese press and Western press were all over it. So Elon Musk is a personality loved and hated by people. The ups and downs of Tesla's stock, I think, is more reflective of people's opinion of him than Tesla's real performance in China. I think a significant of it is publicity work. First of all, Tesla's accomplishment last year wasn't as abysmal as some analysts have pronounced, considering the 2-month lockdown in Shanghai from April to June and the COVID surge at the end of the year. According to the China it's called China Passenger Association, Tesla's 700,000 new cars delivered in 2022 made it the #1 luxury car brand in the Chinese market, overtaking the German automaker group. Chinese call it the BBA group, meaning BMW, Benz. They don't use Mercedes-Benz, they use Benz and Audi, right? So BBA. And so if you think about it, an EV maker being the #1 luxury auto brand in China is quite a accomplishment. Secondly, the claim that BYD has overtaken Tesla as the world's largest EV maker is also not accurate because it's comparing apples to oranges. Tesla makes pure electric cars, while more than half of BYD's cars are plug-in hybrid or PHEV. BYD sold 1.8 million cars in 2022. That is more than Tesla's 1.3 million, but less than half of, or almost half of BYD's cars, 48%. It's actually 48%, or 911,000 cars were pure EV. So when you compare BYD's 911,000 to Tesla's 1.3 million, Tesla still beat BYD by 400,000 cars. But what made BYD very successful last year was its plug-in hybrid, which would represent 52% of its business. And it's a business that has a higher growth than its pure EV cars. I think the growth for the plug-in was 250%, whereas the growth for the pure EV was 180%. So I'm not so sure if the statement that Tesla is losing market share to BYD is also accurate, because the two EV makers target different customers. The Chinese has a saying, they say Tesla owners don't want to own a BYD car, whereas BYD customers want a Tesla. Tesla is considered a luxury brand in China. Tesla target the affluent Chinese who want to pay a premium to own a foreign brand. They are buying the Tesla brand name. And also, Tesla is probably not the only car in these families, right? Driving a Tesla is a symbol of status for them. Whereas BYD cars are sold at almost, or were sold at almost a half of the price of Tesla. People who buy BYD more than likely own just one car. When you only have one car, plug-in hybrid is more practical. So for the average Chinese families that can afford only one car, a pure EV doesn't appeal to them for 4 reasons. And this is not what I'm saying it. This is according to the Chinese auto websites. So the 4 reasons, number 1 is a pure EV car loses performance in extreme temperature, whether it's winter or summer. Number 2, it's time consuming in charging. Right? Finding a charging station is a problem for people in the urban area, in the highly dense urban area. It's hard. You have to wait in line. It's hard to find them. And in rural area, they're just not. You just can't find them very easily. And the third reason is the low resale values compared to plug-ins. So according to China Vehicle Resale Value Report released by the China automobile dealers, a 3-year used EV vehicles retain 51% value compared to 61% value for a PLEV, the plug-ins. However, a used Tesla remains more valuable compared to domestic brands. And then the fourth reason is battery replacement is very expensive for these families. So these are the reasons um, that make BYD seem appealing um, to Chinese consumers because BYD offers hybrid options, but Tesla doesn't. One Chinese report say that Chinese business people try to avoid EV cars because when they're on the road, they cannot guarantee if they can find a charging station, everywhere they go. And even if they do, they don't have the time to charge, to stop for 30 minutes to charge the battery on a business trip. So the other difference that sets Tesla and BYD apart is it's their product lineup. Tesla has only 4 models, right? It's the two dominant models are the Model 3 and the Model Y are the most popular EV cars in China. Ranking number 3 is not a BYD car. Ranking number 3 is actually a small car called Mini EV. It's made by a Chinese brand called Wuling Sunshine. Yeah, it's Wuling Sunshine. So number 1, number 2 is Tesla, and number 3 is in another Chinese brand, but from 4 to like 8 is all BYD. So Tesla has 4 models, right? BYD has 25 models. So from its Dynasty series, the Ocean series, to the Ocean series is even further divided into the Oceanic and the Warship series, the Tengshi D9 series. So BYD's goal is to have a car for everyone. But Tesla's approach is different. Its product lineup is like the comparison is like it's like you're comparing a high-end Western restaurant to a typical Chinese restaurant, right? So Tesla's menu has offer a small selection of delectable dishes, right? But each is impressive. Whereas BYD's menu is like a typical Chinese restaurant that offers a long list of dishes for beef, pork, chicken, seafood, and everything. So their target customers are very different. The other thing is Tesla's simplicity approach in China has made it 4 times more profitable than BYD. And here I want to share a slide. Here we go. This is a slide actually coming from a Chinese expert. I just translated into English for you. So this chart compares, so the green bar shows revenue per car, and the orange bar shows the profit per car. And then the right axis, the percentage, is the profit margin. You see the revenue per cars for Tesla is like 12, it's in Chinese units, 1, which is 10,000. So this is like 1. Yeah. So for Tesla, every car it sells, it makes 120,000 yuan, right? Whereas for BYD, it makes between 0 and 5. So that's about under 30,000 yuan, right? If you look at the orange bars. So 30,000 versus 120,000. So that's why they say every time Tesla sells a car, it makes 4 times the money that when BYD sells a car. But its profit margin, if you look at the chart on the right, I mean the percentage on the right, it's twice as high because the revenue is different. So Tesla's profit margin is that's the line is close to 30%, right? It's the slanted orange line. So Tesla's about 30%, whereas BYD's profit margin is 15%. So Tesla's average gross profit is 4 times that of BYD. So and it's also worth mentioning that BYD adopts the dealership model for sales, and Tesla uses direct sales. So BYD's actual profit margin is lower than the percentages we've seen here because it has to share some of the profit with the dealers, whereas Tesla doesn't have any dealership to pay. So Tesla is actually more profitable in terms of percentage is more profitable than BYD. So that's why Tesla is aggressive in cutting prices because it can afford to do so. Actually, BYD is the most profitable Chinese EV makers because it has the highest gross profit margin when you compare it with other Chinese EV automakers. But when it compares to Tesla, Tesla's efficiency just beats BYD. So some Chinese auto experts, not me, summarized Tesla's secret to cost controls in the following 4 aspects. The first one is, come back. I don't think I have a chart to show you that. The first one is common parts. Model 3 and Model Y share 70% of common parts, right? So, and that's efficiency number 1. And number 2 is more streamlined production process. It is said that the Shanghai Gigafactory can make a Tesla car in 40 seconds. And Chinese media reported that according to insiders who work at the BYD Shenzhen factory, more than 85% of the production lines in that factory are manual. And only a few processes, such as painting, are automated or fully automated. In contrast, Elon Musk has said that 75% of Tesla's production is automated. So the Chinese experts say that BYD is trying to catch up, but it will take at least a couple of years to redesign your production lines. So that takes time. And the number 3 reason why Tesla is more efficient is it's die casting technology that integrates 70 components into one saves about 20% of its manufacturing costs. And this is on Tesla's website. And number 4 is Tesla uses fewer but larger factories to eliminate downtime and redundancy. So these 4 points were the reasons that the Chinese found why Tesla is more efficient, because it helps it eliminate all unnecessary expenses and cut the clutter. And then Tesla and BYD, let's talk about their R&D. Let me go back to the slides. Here's again, this is the source is Chinese source. I just translated for you into English. By the way, I'll provide the links for you at the end of this program, so you can read the Chinese or have someone translate it for you. But I gather all the highlights for you here already. So if you look at the R&D spent, Tesla's numbers are in dollar, and the unit is 100 million, and BYD's is in yuan. So when I converted the amount, so in the past 7 years on this chart, Tesla spent about 10 billion US dollars, whereas BYD spent the equivalent of 7 billion US dollars. But it's interesting how you look at the percentage to their total revenue. It seems that both companies have spent more and more on R&D. Right, you see the uptick in the green bars, the amount spent. But in terms of percentage to their revenue, Tesla continued to go down, meaning that as they spend more, as their revenue grows, uh, revenue has grown, has outpaced its R&D spending, and therefore the percentage to the total is down. Is you have this downward line, from in 2015 was almost 25% of revenue, but now in 2021 it's 5%. But in the case of BYD, it's kind of flat, and actually it has gone up, right, for a couple of years and has gone down. So from this comparison, you could see that Tesla has a healthier growth, or has it's spending more money on R&D, but as a smaller percentage of its total revenue. What they spend on is different. Tesla invested more in artificial intelligence with focus on autopilot and self-driving capability. BYD, on the other hand, has invested heavily on battery, motor, and electric control system. So the difference in their R&D is reflective of the background of the two founders. I think I have a picture of them. Here we go. Elon Musk is a software engineer, whereas Wang Chuanfu is a chemical engineer. Musk once said that Tesla is as much a software company as it is a hardware company. But I think Musk prided himself in Tesla's software, right? One is a guy, however, who likes to build every component of his car. People said that he's obsessed with making everything. In the early days when he was running his battery companies, his suppliers were scared of him because they sell something to him, he takes it apart and he start building it himself, and then he doesn't need your contract anymore. So this guy likes to build everything himself. So their difference has also determined the strength of their companies. AI and great software allowed Tesla to charge a premium, whereas BYD maintains the manufacturing agility to quickly launch a new model to meet market needs. And that's how it's able to have so many models, right? 25. One of the criticism of Tesla by Chinese users is that Tesla doesn't come up with newer models fast enough, and their complaint is Model 3 has been around for a number of years now, and this is too old for a Chinese customer. But I think this is a typical Chinese mentality. This is a very Chinese mentality. Chinese like to see newer models and something different every year. But luxury brands don't change their look and style very often, right? Sometimes not even for a year. If you think about these uh, most prestigious brands in the world, um, they don't change they just have a few product, right? Like the Hermes handbags. I mean, they don't change the look. They just sell those two products. Um, so So luxury brands don't change their look and style very often, and they have fewer products. Whereas cheap brands, they change, like the fast fashion. That they change every year. It's cheap. You buy it, you wear it for one season, and you throw it out. So the Chinese complaint, I think, is really just, it reflects the Chinese mentality. Um, I think for their lack of appreciation of what a luxury brand is. But the fact that Tesla has sold more cars than BMW, Mercedes, and Audi combined, or delivered, I shouldn't say said, because the report said delivered. I think there's a difference. It has delivered more cars than BMW, Mercedes, and Audi combined in China last year, tell us that it is successful as an accessible luxury brand. Now, with its price cut, it's going to cause BYD some heartburn. And this is particularly true when BYD will stop receiving government subsidy this year. And it has already increased its prices. So Tesla has been uh, cutting prices successively since starting last year and into this year, um, causing people protesting or causing people heartburns, whereas BYD has been doing the opposite. It has been raising prices consecutively since last year. So, so going back to the original question, is Tesla losing market share to BYD? I don't think so. Judging by the response from Tesla's price cut today, from both the capital market in the US and also the consumer market response from inside China, even the protesters, I mean, if you think about it, why would people protest? Because they're upset. Well, who are really upset, right? That probably means it's a very smart strategy. Um, I think I think it shows that Tesla still enjoys a large and loyal following. And these are the Chinese who favor foreign brand and want to have a foreign brand. And they are not easily persuaded by BYD. So let's now talk about Tesla and BYD's big challenges in the new year. That doesn't mean things are going to be easy for Tesla. BYD and Tesla are both trying to become more like each other. BYD is coming up with high-end models to compete with Tesla, and Tesla is working on its low-end model, the Model 2. We don't know when would it come out in 2024. I think it's delayed. So they're trying to become more like each other. BYD's R&D team is starting its own research effort into smart driving, and Tesla is making its own battery, the 4680 cell batteries at its Texas factory. Right, the 4680 batteries were unveiled in 2020 and our company's most advanced battery technology. They supposedly offer improved driving range, faster charging time, and a greater number of use cycles. So in terms of production, BYD, besides they're trying to become more like each other, in terms of production, BYD has an advantage because it controls its own supply chain and it's self-sufficient, right? It makes its own core components. It started out as a battery company and today has its own semiconductor and battery companies, and its subsidiaries also supply to other companies. In contrast, Tesla outsources to other global suppliers. So when the global supply chain disruption occurred during the pandemic, it affected Tesla's production, but it had a little impact on BYD. So this is also part of the reason why last year we saw so much struggle on the part of Tesla, but BYD seemed okay. Yeah, its production seemed okay. So Tesla's biggest challenge in 2023 is expanding production capability. The Shanghai lockdown forced Tesla to close the factory, to stop production for almost 2 months, and with an estimated loss of 90,000 cars. With the way the pandemic is going in China, and also after we've seen what happened at Foxconn, I think it's highly risky for Elon Musk to depend, to put more than 50% of its production on China, right? So if I think it's 54% last year, the Shanghai Gigafactory produced 54% of the total cars for the year. So that's highly risky in the middle of the pandemic. And if China shuts down again, and this time not by the government, but by the virus, he needs to get his factories in Germany and Texas up and running fast. And he said this in an interview in May. He said Berlin and Austin are losing billions of dollars right now because there's a ton of expense and hardly any output. So that's his challenge. But for BYD, the current wave of outbreak will reduce domestic demand, particularly its pure EV cars. I think the economic downturn in 2023 in China will impact BYD's EV business more because One, it's losing its pricing advantage over Tesla. And two, the income and job security of the people in the lower social strata who are BYD's customers will be affected more by the shutdown or by the pandemic. So BYD might have picked up some customers that went from Tesla to them in 2022, but that probably won't continue in 2023. However, BYD does have one advantage that Tesla doesn't have. That's the large government orders. So one of the reasons BYD did well in 2022 was orders from taxi companies or I think rental companies, right? So Tesla does not have this advantage. Um, and also BYD's hybrid business, I think, would do okay. Another challenge BYD has in 2023 is obviously losing the government subsidies. In the past 10 years, BYD received more than 12 billion yuan from the government. This is according to some Chinese report. And they say it accounted for half of its net profit. So when you back this out, we know that BYD is already less profitable than Tesla. But when you back out its government subsidy, which accounted for 50% of its profit margin would be even more affected, right? In this year. So I have a chart that I will show you. Their government, where is it? Oh, this is the government subsidy. Let me don't show myself so you can see the chart. So the the green bars are the subsidies, and then the orange are the net profits. So in the case of Tesla, we know Tesla have been losing money up until 2020, and so it started to be profitable in 2020, and then it's now it's becoming a lot more profitable. So the trend is logical, but in the case of BYD, although we've lumped 3 years together, right, from 2016 to 2018, I think this author didn't break it down, but even if you like separate the orange bar, the profit in for the 3 years, if you divide it by a third, it seems that there's a weird, like, BYD was more profitable when it received a little government subsidy. It seems that the more government subsidies it receives, the less profitable it is. And that's just odd. So that's interesting. So there obviously is some internal efficiency. And one thing that I noticed when I was doing research is that, let me come back, is BYD had some major corruption cases that it exposed itself in 2021. I think a total list of 98 or 94 employees were reprimanded, and they affect their cases. The police opened 7 cases. The law enforcement opened 7 cases. And then it affected 28 suppliers. I think this is only the tip of the iceberg, and I think corruption, as you know, is a very common, right? Particularly in these large multinational companies or large companies in China. So I think as BYD grew bigger, corruption caused inefficiency, and the more government give them, the more money the government give them, the less profitable it becomes, and that's just very odd. But anyways, where was I? Okay, so yeah, so that will be BYD's challenge when it loses 50% of its profit margin 2023, and when its competitor is cutting prices seriously. I think that will be BYD's challenge. And the other challenge is, I shouldn't say challenge, it's really the prospect for 2023 is international markets. I have another chart to show you. So this is a chart that compares their market share. As you can see, Tesla uh, is well positioned in the global market, right? So it has almost 40% in the US, 33% in China, and close to 20% in Europe, and other 10%. Whereas BYD is mostly all China. Um, so so BYD is now so for Tesla, cranking up production uh, without relying on China to meet the growth, the demand in the international market is its challenge this year. But for BYD, um, it needs to expand its global market, and it has been doing that. Um, I think a German car rental company ordered 100,000 electric cars from BYD, and the German media said that it's a slap in the face to German automakers. But BYD has been actively planning its global expansion in Europe, South America, Middle East, Africa, and Asia. It has recently spent 5 billion yuan and ordered 8 cargo ships that each can accommodate almost 8,000 vehicles. So BYD is building its own fleet to transport cars. Um, the author of the article said that BYD is having a hard time, although it's trying to set up manufacturing facilities in Europe and other parts of the world, in Brazil, but it's having it's meeting challenges to deal with local labor issues and policy issues. Um, and in the case of let me come back. In the case of Vietnam, um, the manufacturing facility in Vietnam, I think it could be its battery facility. During around Christmas time, there was a strike. The Vietnamese workers went on strike to demand better pay and better work conditions, and BYD was shocked because they thought that Vietnam is a country that's poorer, right? The labor cost is even lower than China, so it was surprised that the workers went on strike. But if you think about it, there's so many other multinational companies that are opening manufacturing facilities in Vietnam, and people can compare notes, right? So the Chinese have acknowledged that they cannot do the same labor practice, follow the same labor practice that they follow in China elsewhere, even in Southeast Asia, even in countries like Vietnam. So BYD gave a 50% base raise to the Vietnamese workers, and also increased the premium pay for overtime. I think the workers were protesting because they were required to work overtime, and they had worked 26 days consecutively without a break, and people just couldn't stand it. In China, I mean, a communist country, they do anything, right? So there's no labor rights, there's no protection for the workers. So when they tried to do that in Vietnam, people just protested. So they learned their lessons. So I think BYD has figured out that it will be very costly for it to try to set up manufacturing facilities in other parts of the world, and they will run into a whole can of problems that it cannot handle. So I think its strategy, it will still manufacturing the vehicles in China and then ship them to other parts of the world, and that's why it has spent 5 billion yuan to build its own fleet, right? Um, so The two concerns that I have for BYD in the international market is one is quality issues, which translates into safety issues because from what I read, BYD cars do have safety issues. So and the second is corruption. Um, when it goes to the international market, would it bring corruption to the local market, to our market? And these are the two things that I'm concerned about. And I think foreign markets, uh, they should be aware of those two issues. Um, South China Morning Post had an article today that I thought is very interesting. It said that global Chinese firms are now trying to decouple from China. Think about it. Chinese firms are trying to decouple from China. It's trying to decouple from itself. Um, as the US business climate turns hostile, and I think it's just not just US, it's everywhere in the world, right? And it says that there's a growing trend of Chinese companies trying to de-China. I don't know if that's the new word, de-China. um, a Chinese firm try to de-China. I don't know what would the Wu Mao or the little pinks think, but they try to localize their image and operations to remain competitive in the foreign markets. They do not want to be perceived as Chinese. So, with that said, I think BYD's global expansion will not be as smooth as it had hoped. And on that note, I think Tesla has much greater advantage than BYD, and I think Tesla should fully take advantage of that. So, the other variable is how would the Chinese government, somebody asked me the question, you know how when Chinese government entice foreign brands to go to China, there's a what is it called? Attract, engage, and slaughter, right? So somebody asked me, so has Tesla entered the slaughter stage in China? I think with everything, it wants to, but with everything that's happening in China, um, with the sudden change, right? The change of tone at the National Economic Conference in December, I think right now Xi Jinping, probably the regime does not have the bandwidth to to make it difficult for companies like Tesla. It's gonna make it easy for them because it cannot afford to alienate any. It cannot afford to lose another major international brands. So for now, for the short term, I think it's gonna yeah not do much to make it difficult for Elon Musk. But it doesn't mean that its competitors, the Chinese EV makers, are not going to do what it can to create situations for Tesla. To use media will be continue to be on the Chinese EV makers' side. But I think at this point, I think the more you bundle yourself with the Chinese government, the more you're hurting your consumer market prospect. Think about it right now. I mean, the sentiment, the Chinese consumer sentiment has completely changed in the past 6 months, right? So the more BYD and other Chinese EV makers bundle themselves with the Chinese government, I think the more they're hurting their consumer market because people don't like the Chinese government right now. So things are just very different right now. So with that said, I think I do not think Tesla, all the press that we've seen here in the West are so pessimistic about Tesla in China. And I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that they don't like Elon Musk buying Twitter. So hopefully I have given you enough analysis to show otherwise. I will provide the links. There are many great analysis that the Chinese have done by comparing BYD to Tesla. And I think they've done a very solid job without bias. So, all right. So I'm done. Okay. Do I have any questions? From Robert Hulk. Given the current situation, would it not make sense for Ming Chi Kuo to quit the Apple file in order to go work on Tesla? I don't know. I don't know whether if he has done that. I have not followed him, but I know a lot of people. Um, a lot of people rely on his information for Apple news. Sorry, so I'm not familiar with that. Venkat, great financial analyst. Thank you. I enjoy this conversation because I run very little risk of being censored by YouTube. This is a pure business analysis, and I enjoy it because every time you talk about protest, CCP politics, there's the risk of being censored by YouTube. It does not, so this one it's a change for me. Michael A. Mayo. Regarding the prosecution surrounding BYD, is BYD partly owned by a family faction opposed to Xi? That I have not looked into. BYD was Warren Buffett invested in BYD, but he has been divesting 6 times consecutively in the past couple of months. Yeah, I think he's figured out that it's going to go downhill from here on. So, all right. So, that's all for today. I have another conversation that's starting soon. I hope you found it helpful. It's a change for me, and I'll see you uh a couple of days later. I think for this week we'll do it on Sunday because the first week of every month we'll do the weekend live on Sunday morning instead of Saturday night. Okay? So I'll see you Sunday morning. Bye-bye. Bye.